I never thought my life would turn into something that could be told like a crime story, the kind you watch on late-night TV and shake your head at thinking, that would never happen to me. But here I am, telling you how the woman I loved, the woman I trusted more than anyone, turned me into a villain in the eyes of the world. My name doesn't matter for now. What matters is how everything I built, everything I believed in, was nearly destroyed by the person who shared my bed. I married Claire 2 years ago. I was 51, she was 49. Both of us had pasts, scars, broken pieces we didn't often talk about. I had lost my first wife to illness years earlier, and I thought my chance at love had ended there. Claire came into my life like a second wind, graceful, strong, a woman who knew how to hold herself in any room. She wasn't loud or flashy, but people noticed her. She had this aura of dignity, like someone you could never suspect of doing anything cruel. That was probably why everyone believed her so easily. At first, our marriage was simple. I ran my business, a mid-sized catering company I'd inherited from my father. Claire worked part-time in event planning, and sometimes we collaborated. Friends admired us, said we looked like a power couple. I thought so too, but slowly, small cracks began to show. She'd ask questions about my accounts, my contracts, things I never expected her to care about. I brushed it off. Maybe she was just curious. Maybe she wanted to feel more involved. Then came the mood swings. Some days she was warm, affectionate, the woman I'd fallen for. Other days she was distant, almost calculating, like her eyes were already somewhere else. I told myself it was stress, hormones, or just marriage adjusting. I didn't push. Maybe that was my mistake. I trusted too much. The first real sign came when she insisted we start keeping more detailed records of my business expenses. She framed it like advice, like she wanted to help me modernize things. I didn't argue. I thought, fine, she wants to help. I gave her partial access to my financials. She said it was only temporary, just to organize things. I didn't see the trap being built right in front of me. Around that time, she also started spending more evenings out. She claimed it was for networking, meeting potential clients. She'd come home late, tired but oddly satisfied, like someone who had checked something off their private list. I asked once who she was meeting, and she snapped at me, then softened and kissed me as if to erase the tension. I let it go. I shouldn't have. Looking back, I see how carefully it was orchestrated. She built her image in our circle as the perfect wife, supportive, graceful, enduring. People admired her composure, her strength. Meanwhile, she planted seeds that I was careless with money, too trusting with my employees, maybe not as sharp as I used to be. I only learned this later, how she would casually drop comments at dinners, laugh off little mistakes of mine that she invented. At the time, I was blind. The turning point came one Friday evening. We were supposed to attend a friend's birthday dinner. Instead, she came into my office at home with papers in hand, her face tight with urgency. She said, "There are irregularities. I think someone is stealing from you. We need to get ahead of it." I remember the words clearly. She looked so serious, so convincing. My stomach dropped. Who would steal from me? I treated my staff fairly. But she had spreadsheets, highlighted numbers, patterns she claimed she'd uncovered. She said we should report it before it looked like negligence. I believed her. That night, I didn't sleep. I felt betrayed, anxious, wondering who in my company could do this. But what I didn't know was that my own wife had framed me. I only knew that life as I understood it was about to collapse. The call came on a Monday morning, just as I was reviewing contracts for a new client. 2 men in suits showed up at my office, their expressions grim and professional. They introduced themselves from the Financial Crimes Division. I laughed at first, thinking there had to be a mistake. But the folders they placed on my desk, the pages of numbers, the signatures, they all carried my name. My name on transactions I didn't authorize. My name tied to accounts I had never opened.
My chest tightened as I skimmed through the papers. The officers weren't joking. They were here because someone had filed a report, and that someone was my wife. Claire walked in a few minutes later, her face a mask of concern, perfectly staged. She rushed to my side, placing a hand on my arm, whispering that it would be okay, that she'd help me through this. To the officers, she looked like the devoted spouse standing by her husband in his time of need. But in that moment, something about her eyes struck me. They weren't worried. They were watchful, calculating. Like she wanted to see how I'd react. They asked me questions. Did I authorize transfers to a shell company registered overseas? Did I sign off on a catering deal that never existed? The signatures looked like mine, but I knew they weren't. Still, the more I denied, the more I sounded like a liar. And Claire, with her measured words and subtle nods, painted the picture of a husband who had maybe taken risks, who had maybe gotten desperate, who might have hidden things from her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After they left, she sat across from me, silent. I asked her straight, "What the hell did you tell them?" She lowered her gaze, sighing heavily, as if the burden was too much for her. "I had to," she said. "They came to me with questions. I couldn't lie." Her voice cracked at just the right moment, the tears forming without smudging her makeup. She was flawless in her performance. Anyone else would have believed her, but I saw it then, just for a flicker, a flash of satisfaction in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. The fallout was immediate. Clients started pulling back, contracts were paused, employees whispered in corners, their trust shaken. Rumors spread that I had been laundering money, that I had been pocketing funds. The papers Claire had uncovered were circulating. And she played the role of the heartbroken wife trying to hold everything together. People called her brave. They said she was strong for not abandoning me. I was the villain, and she was the martyr. Nights became unbearable. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, piecing together the sequence of events. How had this all started? How had the woman who shared my life turned into my executioner? Then small details began to surface in my memory. The sudden interest in my accounts, the long nights she claimed for networking, the spreadsheets she had handed me, so neatly prepared. The trap had been laid long before I saw it. I confronted her again, demanding the truth. She didn't flinch. She raised her voice, accused me of trying to drag her down with me. "I won't let you ruin me," she said, her tone sharp as a blade. It wasn't fear. It was control. She was letting me know she had the upper hand, that she had already decided which of us the world would believe. That was the night I stopped seeing her as my wife. She wasn't my partner, companion, or friend anymore. She was my enemy. And enemies, no matter how close they sleep to you, eventually reveal their weakness. I swore then that I would find hers.
The morning after our fight, I drove to the office earlier than usual. The silence of the empty building gave me clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. My staff still avoided me, my phone buzzed with messages from clients reconsidering their options, and my reputation was bleeding out fast. If I didn't act, Claire's story would become the only truth anyone believed. I needed to uncover how she'd done it, and why. I started with the basics, bank statements. I spent hours combing through transactions, line by line, date by date. That's when I noticed patterns that didn't make sense. Transfers scheduled at odd hours, subtle changes in account names, amounts that were just small enough to escape suspicion, but large enough to add up over time. All tied back to me, yet all originated from devices I hadn't used. Claire had access to everything. My laptop, my phone, even my office keys. She didn't need to forge my signature on paper. She had forged my digital presence, my very identity. But there was something else. I noticed a recurring name on some of the phantom accounts. At first, I thought it was random, but it appeared too often. A family name I didn't recognize. Not in my circle, but in hers. Curiosity sent me searching, and after a few calls, I learned the truth. It was her cousin. Someone she'd claim hadn't spoken to her in years, yet there he was, benefiting from my so-called transactions.
Rage boiled in me, but I forced it down. If I confronted her now, she'd twist it again, make it look like paranoia. No, I needed proof. Real proof. The kind even her crocodile tears couldn't wash away. That's when I made the call I never thought I would. I hired a private investigator. The man was seasoned, discreet, and sharp enough to know the stakes. I gave him everything: account names, bank slips, even the dates when Claire had been working late. Within a week, he returned with photos. Claire at fancy restaurants, meeting the same cousin who had magically resurfaced. Claire passing him envelopes. Claire laughing, relaxed, alive in a way she hadn't been with me for months. The images burned into me. My wife wasn't just setting me up to take the fall, she was siphoning my business into the hands of her family. And once I was out of the picture, whether in prison or bankruptcy, they'd own everything I had built. She wasn't protecting her reputation, she was rewriting her future, with me as the scapegoat left to rot. That night, she walked into the house as if nothing had happened, smiling faintly, setting her purse on the counter. I watched her, wondering how many lies could fit behind one smile. She poured herself a glass of wine, humming softly, completely unaware that I already had her betrayal in black and white photographs sitting in my drawer. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel despair. I felt calm. Cold. Deliberate calm. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because exposing her too soon would give her time to maneuver, to manipulate. Instead, I started playing my own role. I acted defeated, broken, exactly how she wanted me. I let her think she had won. And while she celebrated in silence, I sharpened the knife of truth, waiting for the right moment to drive it into the heart of her scheme. She thought she made me into a criminal, but she had only made me dangerous.
Claire thought she was a master manipulator. She had painted me as unstable, careless with money, even dangerous if pushed. She told friends I had outbursts, hinted to her family that I was under investigation, and carried herself like a woman surviving a toxic marriage. But I wasn't toxic. I was silent, and silence is the most dangerous weapon. The private investigator had given me enough to burn her entire life to ashes, but I wasn't satisfied with exposure alone. If I simply revealed the pictures, Claire would claim desperation, say she was manipulated by her cousin, maybe even spin it into me being abusive and controlling. She was too good with her words. No, I needed her to condemn herself in her own voice. So I began the game. I pretended to retreat. I told her I was considering stepping down from the business, that the pressure was too much. Her eyes lit up in a way she couldn't hide, the same way a predator's does when it smells blood. She encouraged me, gently at first, then more firmly, suggesting I sell, reminding me of how tired I looked. She was laying the path for me to walk away, not knowing I was marking every step she forced me onto. I set up cameras in my office, hidden in plain sight. I recorded our conversations at home with a small device tucked in my jacket. At first, she was cautious, but greed has a way of loosening tongues. The more she believed I was collapsing, the more reckless she became. She bragged about plans coming together, about how Joe, her cousin's name was also Joe, would be the future of the company. She slipped, again and again, digging her own grave one careless word at a time. The breakthrough came one evening when she thought I was asleep in my study. She called Joe, her voice sharp, urgent. "He's finally caving. Just a few more weeks and the contracts will be in our hands. Once he's out, we'll clean everything up." I had it all recorded, the exact words I needed. But I didn't stop there. I called the investigator again and told him I wanted the financial web traced to the end. I wanted every account, every transfer, every shell company exposed. Within days, he delivered a file so thick it looked like a book. Claire wasn't just stealing from me. She was laundering money through the business, dragging my name into real criminal territory. If I hadn't caught it, I might have been in handcuffs by now. I sat with that file for hours, staring at the evidence of her betrayal. My wife, the woman who swore loyalty, who wore my ring, who looked me in the eye every night, was orchestrating my downfall. But instead of despair, I felt something else. Control. For the first time in months, I wasn't the victim,
I was the storm gathering over her carefully built house of lies. The next morning, I walked into the office with a calm smile. My employees looked at me with uncertainty, still unsure what to believe. I didn't correct them. Let them think I was beaten. Let Claire think I was finished. Because the moment I revealed what I had, there would be no escape for her, no excuse convincing enough, no mask strong enough to hide the truth. I wasn't going to just clear my name. I was going to destroy hers.
I knew I had to move carefully. One wrong step and Claire could twist everything back onto me. She was skilled at playing the victim, and if I confronted her too soon, she'd spin another web, maybe even make me look like the abuser again. So I planned each move like a chess match, every piece positioned before I made a single strike. The first step was securing the business. I called my lawyer, a man I'd trusted for years, and quietly transferred decision-making power into a trust under my name alone. Claire no longer had a legal pathway to touch the company, though she didn't know it yet. I also made sure every suspicious transaction she had routed through the company accounts was flagged and documented, so when the hammer fell, it wouldn't land on me. Next, I turned to the people around us. She had poisoned our friends and family with lies about me, but lies don't hold forever. I began dropping small truths in conversations, not accusations, just questions. Strange, isn't it? How Claire seems to know so much about the company finances when she isn't involved? Or, I thought Joe had his own business, but Claire talks like he's running mine already. People began to notice cracks in her story, the inconsistencies she had overlooked. Suspicions started to shift just slightly, but enough for me to know the tide was turning. Then came the real strike. I invited her to dinner. Candlelight, wine, the perfect picture of reconciliation. I told her I was ready to step back, that I wanted her to take more control, that maybe Joe should shadow me to learn the ropes. Her smile was radiant, but her eyes betrayed her, hungry, calculating. I poured another glass of wine, leaned close, and said, "Funny thing, though. I wonder what the board would say if they knew about the money funneling, or about those late-night phone calls to Joe. Should we tell them together, or would you prefer I play the recordings?" Her face went pale. She stammered, demanded to know what I meant, but I simply pulled out my phone and hit play. Her own voice filled the air. "Just a few more weeks and the contracts will be in our hands." The room went silent except for the sound of her breathing, sharp and shallow. For the first time, Claire was the one cornered. She reached for excuses, explanations, tears. She said she had been pressured, manipulated, that it wasn't what it seemed. But this time, I didn't waver. I told her I had the financial files, the recordings, the legal safeguards. I told her if she so much as whispered another lie about me, the entire world would know the truth. Her family, our friends, the authorities. She broke then. Not completely, not yet, but enough for me to see fear take root where arrogance once lived. And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't just want to expose her. I wanted her to live under the shadow of knowing I could end her at any time. I wanted her to feel the same helplessness she had tried to trap me with. As she sat there, silent and trembling, I stood, poured myself another glass, and said, "This isn't over, Claire. But it's no longer your game. It's mine."
Once Claire knew I had her cornered, she tried to retreat, to slip back into the role of the perfect wife who had made a mistake out of desperation. She cooked dinner, cleaned the house, even left little notes of apology on my desk, but I saw the truth in her eyes. It wasn't guilt, it was fear. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was terrified of what I could do now that I held the power. That fear became my weapon. I didn't throw her out immediately. That would have been too easy, too merciful. Instead, I let her live in uncertainty. I'd come home late without explanation, watch her tense up when I checked my phone, say nothing when she asked if I was going to expose her. Every silence, every unanswered question chipped away at her control. She had turned my life into a prison once, and now she was trapped in hers. But I wasn't content with just leaving her anxious. I wanted to dismantle the fantasy she had built around herself, the carefully constructed image of a respectable woman, devoted wife, loving mother. So I leaked pieces of the truth, not all at once, but in ways that spread like wildfire. First, I accidentally let her sister overhear one of the recordings. Then, I made sure a trusted board member saw the flagged financial records. Each revelation was a spark, and Claire's reputation began to burn. Her friends stopped calling, family gatherings became tense, whispers replacing the warm greetings she used to receive. Even Joe, the son she had promised the world to, looked at her differently when he realized she had built him up with false promises of a business that was never hers to give. The trust between them shattered, and for the first time, I saw her alone in the crowd she once commanded. When the time was right, I ended it. I served her the divorce papers, not in private, but at a charity gala she had insisted we attend together. The moment her name was called for recognition, I stepped forward and placed the envelope in her hands. The shock on her face, the murmurs that spread across the room, the way she tried to smile through tears, it was the finale she had written for herself. I walked out before dessert was served, leaving her to face the stares, the whispers, the judgment. I didn't need to stay and watch. I knew the damage was permanent. Her mask had slipped, and there was no recovering the life she had built on deception. As for me, I returned to my business with a renewed sense of clarity. No more shadows, no more lies hanging over my head. I had been painted as a criminal, forced to live under suspicion for crimes I never committed. But in the end, I emerged untouchable. Claire had tried to destroy me, but instead, she destroyed herself. I didn't need to put her behind bars. I gave her something worse, a life where every person she meets remembers her as the woman who betrayed her husband, her son, and herself. She made me a criminal, but I turned her into a ghost of her own making, and that, to me, was justice.